What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Culture 316 podcast. I'm one of your hosts and producers, Jordan Nahisi.
Joined to you by your co-host Mo. What's going on, people?
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode. Once again, if you are on Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts, be sure to subscribe to the podcast, give it a 5 stars. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to click in the description in YouTube to join our Discord. And also, our next space will be on September 30th for NXT's No Mercy. So be sure to tune in for that. We have a lot going on this show. And we're not going to waste any more time. So we're going to get right into it. So, first things first, September 11th marked the end of an era in WWE, as it was the last day in which the McMahon family independently owned WWE. The Endeavor merger has officially closed. This means that WWE has sold a 51% stake in the company for, I believe, $9.3 billion.
Got you
Vince
for a
McMahon will
moment.
now serve as the executive chair of the Endeavor TKO board, because now WWE and UFC have merged to create TKO. When he acquired the company from his father in the 1980s, he bought it for $1 million. His investment ballooned to about $9.3 billion. We also have to note that Triple H will not be a part of the board of directors of TKO. I believe that he had declined board of directors position. All of There were some executives in WWE who, as a result of the sale of the company, were able to get bonuses. Nick Khan, I believe, got $17 million. Triple H got $5 million. The former CFO, whose name escapes me at the time, I believe, got $5 million, and he has also departed the company. Also, it's important to note that because of this merger I'm not going to get into that part now. But first off, I just kind of want to know what your impressions are on this sale, the merger of WWE and UFC. What do you think this means for WWE on a business end? And I just kind of want to know that first.
I'm actually surprised they pulled off what they did with UFC. Just
Mm.
because, like the fan bases are not alike. Like UFC fans actually hate us, and it's been verbalized. They make fun of us. They do. They think that we should have been grown out of this sport. Yes, I'm considering a sport. UFC fans, it's a fucking sport to me. They think we should have been grown out of this childlike hobby,
Mm.
and they don't respect it. So, but I know in the reverse, there's WWE fans that duly watch UFC.
Mm.
So, I don't know if that means we're going to gain anymore or we're just going to have to see how it plays out. But I think it's interesting, but it also makes me think, okay, like, are they going to start trying to acquire more UFC fighters and put them in roles? Because not for nothing, they done it in the past where they tried playing around with the idea of pulling UFC fighters, and most people didn't take anything of it seriously. So I'm like wondering what would they realistically do. I don't want to immediately say like, oh, it's going to fail,
Mm.
because I am interested in seeing how it plays out, but I just think that it's risky. I'm not sure if I wouldn't quite say they're throwing shit at the wall with this one, but it's odd because it's tricky, and I feel like it requires either us adopting their ways or vice versa to make it work accordingly. I was also shocked to hear that you said that Triple H didn't want to take the board of director role. Is that what I heard correctly?
Yeah, he didn't. I think they offered him a position on the board, and he declined.
I found that part interesting listening just because, not for nothing, Triple H has been getting like a lot of criticism for the way he's been allegedly, I'm say allegedly running, because I feel like Vince's hands is still somewhere in this bitch. But I find it interesting that he didn't want to take upon this role, because if I feel like there's anyone that I would trust with this company, if not like blood related, it's Triple H.
Mm.
So to give it away, I just wonder if he doesn't believe in this business in the long run. Like, it surprises me. Maybe he wants a break. Maybe he just wants to just do a simpler role and be a family man or something. But I'm actually quite surprised after being in a position of some form of power for a year that he wouldn't want to take this ultimate position.
Mm.
Um, so that's just my little 2 cents on it. What did you think about it?
That's that's very, 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 very interesting and very valuable. What I would say, um, is as it pertains to the merger, I'm not surprised that it actually happened. Even though the fan bases are kind of, night and day. Um, from the outside looking in, meaning from a non-wrestling, non-combat sports related fan, this is a move that just kind of makes sense.
Hmm.
Also, I wouldn't be surprised if this was being done in order to do another sale of UFC and WWE, since both companies have been in talks to be bought by um, major media conglomerates, major media networks. As far as Triple H not taking the board of directors position, I'm actually not surprised. Triple H in a bunch
Really?
of interviews has been, yeah, Triple H in a bunch of interviews has been very vocal on him, saying like at a certain age that he wants to be out of this. You know what I'm saying? And when you are a
Mm.
board of directors member, it's very much like a long term commitment. I think that Triple H wants to just do his job and just go home. And like clearly
Mm.
because of the sale of WWE, and I assume that he still has some stock in this merged company, he doesn't necessarily have to be on the board of directors in order to reap some big benefits from the value of this company going up. He's already collected
Mm.
$5 million as a bonus, like just as a bonus. You know what I mean? So I
Wow.
don't think that I don't think that he's really too keen on being a board of directors position. I think he just wants to handle creative and train those that are under him to take up his position. That's very much always been kind of like his body. Um,
Mm.
so I think that that's kind of where I stand on the sale. I'm very, very interested and intrigued how they kind of move forward with this. They were
Mm.
at the New York Stock Exchange on, I believe it was Monday, when the deal closed. And Bianca Belair was there, Montez Ford was there, which speaks volumes of how the company sees those guys as being the representatives of WWE on the New York Stock Exchange. Vince was there, Triple H was there. So I'm very, very intrigued to see where it goes. But there, like you said, I think that Nick Khan kind of pointed at it, but he was talking about how there is the possibility of UFC fighters having a life after the UFC in WWE. I mean, obviously, we just saw Ronda Rousey and her run, and that's questionable, but that's another topic for another day. Um, Conor McGregor has been very vocal as far as joining the WWE. We can see that now. Daniel Cormier is another one who's been a fan of WWE for a very long time, and they've kind of always have been kind of flirting with each other, the UFC and
Mm.
WWE. And so I think that we can see UFC fighters um, go into WWE, because not for nothing, even though the UFC fans don't necessarily like WWE, WWE has a big influence on combat sports in general, in the sense of how fights are kind of promoted based off of characters and these larger than life personalities. These are things that were, a WWE thing. So to be in UFC and not be, if you're in UFC, I wouldn't be surprised if you're influenced by WWE and the characters that came along with it. So I do expect to see some of that coming into the fold, but that's a that's a different conversation for a different day. But we're gonna wrap up on this particular point. But we want to know how you guys feel about the WWE and UFC merging into TKO. Let us know how you guys feel in the comments. But we're gonna move on. So in addition to these changes that are being made, there have been rumors and reports circulating, not just of talent that is releasing, or talent that will be released, or office staff that will be released, but also there have been rumors of changes regarding to the on-screen product of WWE. More so notably, they've been talking about a rumored split with the undisputed tag team championships. Rumors have begun to circulate about WWE introducing certain title schemes and weight classes amongst the rosters. Do you think that this is something that WWE is going to do and implement? And do you think that this is good for WWE?
I think that it wouldn't fit. It wouldn't fit. It
Mm,
wouldn't make sense to make it fit because back then when I was watching wrestling as a kid, right? Like there were people that were literally larger than life, and it was more common. Like you had like a lot of big people. You know, you had people that were like 6'3" to 6'10", and like you had a handful of them too. But then even the guys
mm,
that were like riding around like this, the 5'11" to 6 foot two, like they had a lot of muscle mass, so you had enough for its own division for heavyweights. And then of course you had your mid carders, and they were going for like the IC title, US title, and stuff like that. Um, and and it worked back then because there literally was a division class, and each class was entertaining enough. But nowadays, not as many people, I should say, are stabbing themselves with needles. So we have a lot of smaller people, and that's okay. That's okay that they're smaller, but it's just like it's not going to make sense because we had smacked that world title on so many people now that are regular sized humans.
mm.
Well, yeah, just about regular sized humans. Not to say that they're tiny, it's just that like, they're very normal size, and we still use like we do say heavyweight, but we mean world title. Like the way that we adjusted as fans to watching, we always treated it like the World Heavyweight Championship or the WWE Championship, which is like the top of the top. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
Right.
it's not a bad thing to get the IC belt or the US belt or whatnot, but like you want to shoot for that world belt. So I just feel like on a logical standpoint, it's not going to make sense just because you don't even have a division. You don't even have a division right now that would classify as a heavyweight.
Mm,
At least not with this company. And I feel like I've seen like in other companies, they still try to keep true to that whole weight class thing. Like I used Will Ospreay as an example before. Will Ospreay literally went up in weight classes on purpose so he could fight for the heavyweight belt in Japan, and that worked out accordingly, and it made sense. I don't think that here it would make sense. Currently, we have someone like Seth Rollins, running
mm.
around with the belt. And I'm just like, that wouldn't make sense. What are you gonna do? Push stuff down to the mid cards? Can he
Yeah.
handle it? Yes, that's not the issue. But it's just like you look at him, look at him as a world title guy. You know what I mean? And that's the way we translate it as fans. So to divide it up amongst weight classes, I feel like it's too complicated. It's too contrived. It's illogical, and I feel like it's also going to put pressure on like the talent that we already have. It's going to probably pressure them to like move up and down weight classes because of the stigma that we already connected that the world belt or the heavyweight belt is like the top of the top of the top.
Right.
I just think it's just more problems. It's more messy when they could just focus on simply the easier part, the easier
Mm,
slices, which is just give us good storylines, put on good matches. That's all we ask for. We don't need this chopping up in weight classes. Like it's nice for realism, but it's inevitably silly considering what we accomplish now with the size guys we have.
mm.
Yeah, that's what I think.
I personally like essentially to kind of piggyback off of you. I was going through my notes to kind
Mm-hmm.
of piggyback off of you. I think that part of successfully merging these two companies is understanding the unique identity of both. When you look at
Mm-hmm.
UFC, you're looking at a league in which every champion is a world champion. There's no such thing as a mid card. There's no such thing as an undercard. There's the world middleweight, the world, featherweight. So everybody's a world champion in their own right in UFC. And it's essentially just like who's the best fighter in the world in this weight class. And whereas in WWE, everything is like a hierarchy. You know what I'm saying? Like you have your money in the bank briefcase, you have your US title, you have your intercontinental title, and then you can work your way up to the WWE World Heavyweight title or the WWE Universal Championship. Um, and I think that there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like there's nothing wrong with the two companies have two different identities and two different ways of doing things, because I think that when you look at the way the WWE is structured, there's a lot of wrestling history that goes behind even the mid card titles, right? When you talk about the United States Championship, this is a championship that has its roots in the territories and in the NWA. And essentially, the whole purpose of a United States champion in a certain territory was so that when the traveling world champion came to that particular territory, the person that that world champion would face was usually that U.S. champion. That's not something that we see in the UFC. You know what I'm saying? Um, with tag teams, I don't think that we've seen a MMA tag team. So obviously, that's a whole thing within itself. But I don't think that the whole weight class thing um is going to work for WWE because WWE is driven by UFC is driven by fights, but WWE is driven by stories. And because of that, when you start to put people in weight classes, you now are restricting them to the type of stories that they can tell. And on top of that, like there's so many in wrestling, like the industry is evolving in a way in which it's not all about who's the biggest, who's accumulated the most muscle mass. Like some of the best world champions that we've seen in the past 20 years have been people who aren't necessarily the biggest guys. Like Rey Mysterio wasn't the biggest guy. Randy Orton wasn't the biggest guy. Kurt Angle wasn't the biggest guy. So we have to keep that in mind, like moving forward. But I don't think that it's going to be good if they do decide to do the weight classes. There's also been talks of like a trios championship, which that could work, but I'm not sure of that either. But once again, I guess we can figure that out as things go along. But that kind of wraps up our that little topic as far as the championships and changes being made in the weight classes. So let us know how you guys feel in the comments below. Um, so we're moving on. So All Elite Wrestling, they did an evaluation on All Elite Wrestling, especially after the success of All in London. And All Elite Wrestling is valued at $2 billion. Apparently, the assistant managing editor of Forbes Media and co-host managing editor of Forbes Sports Money did a study on the AEW business and valued the company at over $2 billion. I just wanted to know if you were surprised by this. Are you surprised that AEW All Elite Wrestling is being valued at $2 billion?
Not at all. And I feel like it took some time to get to this position, but they found their niche audience and a market that works for them. Um, like the competition especially helped. Um,
Mm,
Creating this idea of a promotion where you could like see all the dream matches you've been wanting to see with their indie heart worked lovely. The cross promotions, of course, I feel like was another helping tactic. The fact that they've
mm.
been working internationally, they've been having collaborations with major brands, major networks. I'd be surprised if the number was any less. To me, I think actually 2 billion is a little bit lower for me than what I expected, just because like they've been doing a lot within a small amount of time, and it's very impressive. Like say
Right.
what you want about this company, but like they're legit. If you didn't think they were legit, they're pulling their weight. What do you think?
So once again, I'm not surprised either that it's valued at $2 billion at all. I think that we have seen an immense amount of growth from All Elite Wrestling within the past 4 years of its existence, from where they were when they first announced in 2019 to accumulating their media deals to selling out arenas and selling out stadiums. I think that it comes of no surprise to me that they are this successful. um, I do want to say though, because there's a lot of wrestling fans who are like, "How are they a $2 billion company and they can't even sell out an arena or da 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 da?" So I actually looked it up, and your business valuation is determined by a variety of factors. It includes total assets, total liabilities, current earnings, and projected earnings based on the quality of your idea and market potential. So let's take into account all these things, right? You have All Elite Wrestling, the TV aspect. We don't know how much their media rights cost, but we know that if you're running 3 shows a week, you're getting a pretty penny. So that's a thing within itself. Then you have merchandise. Then you have pay-per-view sales. Then you have the live event sales actually. Then you have like paid placements and ads and things amongst those lines. And when you take into consideration all these things, and take into consideration that they are an alternative wrestling company to WWE, that has been able to accumulate a lot of success over the past 4 years, it is of no success that they can be valued at $2 billion. I think my question to you: do you see AEW selling? Because we just saw uh, WWE sell for essentially $9.3 billion, and that took them from the '80s until now. So it took WWE 40 years. Do you think that AEW can get to that $9.3 billion mark as far as their valuation? And do you think that they would ever sell?
Yeah, yeah, I
Mm,
see them doing it. I mean, but I feel like they would definitely want to keep this company like going longer, before they decide to sell or give over their power elsewhere. But like I said before, they mastered their niche. So I mean, it's harder for people on the outside that are committed to WWE to see this, because like all you know, and as far as wrestling goes, is the WWF, WWE, whatnot. But like I said, like there's a lot of people invested in this type of wrestling, this type of art, this type of television.
mm,
Um, and if they keep marketing themselves the way they are marketing themselves, like I said, they are going to be up there with the other major companies. Do I think that they would sell right now anytime soon? Of course not. But I do see the potential for them to climb numbers, especially with like how much easier I feel like I'm noticing it is for companies to work with each other. Like I know you're mentioning like the difference like with the competition and other brands that want to work with them, the networks and the sales that they've been making. I just feel like there's more willingness now than back then. I don't think like WWE had the pull for a while and they had to play around. And it's going to be easier for AEW to try to make major moves because Vince essentially had to um Vince has to feel like be like a gerbil, like a test rat for
right.
for WWE. Like that's at the top of the top, but it took trial and error. And I feel like now other promotions are kind of using WWE like and what worked for them and what didn't work for them, and they're
Mm,
studying it and they're applying it to themselves to where it like they can make bigger leaps faster because it's like now you know, and it's very few reports you're hearing about about AEW making really bad business moves in terms of like outside stuff, not really
mhm.
internal but outside stuff, and I feel like that's like the reasoning why like they they are like um they are promoted as like ad wise as the alternative, but not for nothing they are similar like and structure to how WWE would operate. So no, I don't see them selling anytime soon, but I do see them climbing that number and probably choosing to sell higher than that, just to stick it to them. I could see them doing that.
I agree. I agree with that. I think we could see AEW sell, not necessarily soon, but I feel like once once AEW is valued at more than $5 billion, I wouldn't be surprised if there are discussions of a sale. Because and to be honest, I feel like they're going to build up a lot more value quicker than WWE, not because they're better than WWE, but just because it's like similar to it's like comparing the television to internet, right? Like television grew over the course of 50 years and the internet did that in 5, but the internet stood on the backs
Yeah,
of television. I feel like that's the same concept with AEW. It's like AEW is building off the backs of an industry that WWE had already kind of established and took dominance over. So I think there's that aspect. So but you know, I want to see what y'all think. Is AEW, do y'all think AEW is really worth $2 billion? You think that they would sell? Let us know in the comments below. But we are going to move on to some other AEW news. So according to the Brent Borough Council, the turnstile count for AEW All In was 72,265 people. This goes against the 81,035 people attendance record that was announced at the event as the paid attendance record for All Elite Wrestling's All in London. Uh, Now, if you were keeping track of everything that's been happening, part of the reason why they wanted to crack that 80,000 mark is not only would it have been the largest attended pro wrestling event in Wembley Stadium, beating out SummerSlam in '92, but also beating out the paid attendance record of WrestleMania 32 of, I believe, right, 80,000. Um, but clearly, 72,000 they would have fallen short of that initial 80,000 people mark. Therefore, it statistically cannot be categorized as the largest pro wrestling event in history. But if this is a verified stat, does this case of inflated numbers tarnish the success of All In?
No, because they still got what they wanted. They
Yeah,
wanted you to get. They wanted you to pay attention. They wanted you to be hyped. They wanted you as a fan to be hyped. They also wanted to shock the competitors, the people that thought that they flopped and failed. And I feel like they were trying to build up the fact that they were heading over to London. Um, and while obviously it was a disingenuous thing to do, if the numbers are indeed true, business is business, and like it works for WWE every fucking year. They lied about
yeah,
Evolution when they were trying to build up Evolution. I forgot how much the numbers were off from. Was it 10,000 or 20,000 that they were off from? But they do it every year with WrestleMania. They do it every time there's like a major pay per view, like a Saudi show or a pay per view that's kind of like a one and done thing. Um, I feel like it was an intentional business tactic. I don't think it's going to tarnish them because the fact that Shaw only been running since what this company spurred up in 2018, 2019, something like that. The fact that
2019.
y'all
Yeah,
only, yeah, the fact that y'all been around for about like 4 years and you were able to reach WrestleMania numbers, still an accomplishment, no matter what
yeah,
way you look at it. Now, could they and should they have been honest? Yeah. But they still got what they wanted and they still put on such a good fucking show that there's people that are from the Americas that want to fly out to go see them the next time they go to Wembley
mm,
or the next time they have another big pay per view. So, no, I don't think so. And as a matter of fact, just because people are arguing and bitching about it, I feel like people are going to be more motivated to try to like get them to hit that number anyways. Because there
yeah,
are people that do want to see WWE fail. They do want to see someone that's going to chew out WWE. I really
mm,
feel like this is going to give them ammo. Like, all right, like we're only off by like less than 10,000. You know, like we can do this, guys. Like we got next year. Like we might
yeah,
have lied this year, but we got you. We got you. We're gonna cop that ticket. Like that's what I see. So I don't think that it was really that bad. They were only off by a couple of thousand. They
right.
did what it had to do. Go ahead.
Uh, oh, jeez. I was like trying to figure out what was going on. Um, I don't think that it tarnishes the success of All In because after I think the attendance is what got everyone talking, but I think that AEW did a good job of maintaining the fans with the quality of the show.
Mm.
Um, and so yes, was the number inflated? Yes, it was. And that's unfortunate. But at the same time, I don't think that it takes away from it being the largest pro wrestling event ever. I think that the fact that they were able to make this noise outside of WWE um, in another country, I think is just a huge accomplishment. And then on top of that, they were able to have a card that lived up to the meaning or lived up to what they were promoting as far as it being the biggest pro wrestling event. Having Will Ospreay versus Chris Jericho isn't something that you would just see on regular TV.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that I think this should just kind of show y'all that like attendance records don't always matter. Um, I think that even if it was short of the 80,000, I think that it still would have been just as much of a success story. Um, because it just is like the fact that AEW was able to accomplish this in this manner. I think is just enough of a big accomplishment. I think that considering that the back and forth between Tony and WWE, I think that Tony wanted to stick it to him. But I feel like maybe All In 2 could be that success story, and we'll see from there. But once again, let us know how y'all feel about this in the comments as far as the all in numbers being inflated, and if it tarnishes the success of All In. But we're going to be moving on. So, man, it seems like Bryan Danielson is nearing the end of his career. He came on to AEW Dynamite, I believe it was, and said that he made his daughter a promise that when she turned 7, that he would begin to step back from his in-ring career. She is now 6, and that he is a man of his word. So this is the last year of his full-time in-ring career. He's essentially announcing his retirement tour. And to kick off his official retirement tour, he has announced a match with the New Japan Strong, or the New Japan Pro Wrestling, or the New Japan World Television Champion, Zack Sabre Jr. This match will take place in Seattle at Wrestle Dream on October 1st in Seattle. Um, this is just a very, very exciting time, I guess, for him and for us as fans, because we're about to see a lot of dream matches. I have a feeling that we're going to see a lot of dream matches. So my question to you is, who do you want to see Bryan Danielson face before his retirement?
The hard part is that, like, I always just want to see him against another technical fighter, and I feel like the only other best technical fighter I want to see him deal with is Zack Sabre Jr. I mean, I
Right.
don't. It has to be within AEW.
What would you
Do they
say?
even? Does it have to be within AEW? Because I don't think they really have people that are like.
I don't think so. I think based off of just like his deal, I think that this can extend to New Japan Pro Wrestling as well, as far as like potential opponents that he can face. Like AEW, New Japan, who knows, maybe even WWE. Who would you want to see him face one more time? Or just face in general?
I feel like AJ Styles has to be part of that, just because
Mm,
it's AJ. Like AJ's been around for so long and putting on classics everywhere. You can never have a bad match with AJ. So if I had to pull any WWE people, I do want to pull Shinsuke. I do want to pull AJ Styles. I'm trying to think of anyone that's worthy. That's on the newer end.
mm.
Hmm. Man, I wish the legends could go at it still.
Yeah,
Because Daniel Bryan with a Kurt Angle that wasn't so old and broken down and not able to pick up his kid. I'm not trying to make fun of
yeah.
him for that. That came out bad. Oh, I'm so sorry, Kurt. I love you. I love you so much. But
He's just beat up and beat down and down bad, and it's just like Jesus. But I
no,
know what you mean, though. I know what you mean, though.
if Kurt wasn't like so, if he wasn't the shape that he was in, that'd be like at the top of my dream match card, just because. But he can't. I'm trying to think of anyone else. I mean, I feel like he already did something with Kota Ibushi. Did he?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I have to look it up.
I'll look that up real quick. I don't think they did anything in Japan. It probably was many years ago, or
Mm,
maybe yeah. I would like a little submission match between them. That'd be nice.
that would be tough. That would be
That'd be
tough.
nice. Um, that's what I have for now. Do you have any other people?
I think the only person that I want to see him face is, well, there's a couple. I want him to go against Adam Cole. I need to see that match at least once. Um,
Oh, I
I
feel like
also
they
want to.
faced already. Wow. Go ahead,
I
go ahead.
don't know. Maybe they have. I think maybe they have actually. That's a good point. But I want to
Go
see it
ahead.
again. Um, but I would also love to see a rematch of him versus Okada, but this time at Wrestle Kingdom in Japan. I think
Yeah.
that's the only thing that has eluded Daniel Bryan is the ability to wrestle for Wrestle Kingdom. And that would mean that he would probably main event Wrestle Kingdom. And I think that he'll be one of the only superstars that was able to main event WrestleMania and Wrestle Kingdom, which I think is a really, really cool thing. But
Yeah, it's
yeah,
cool.
I don't. I think I would love to see him face Swerve as well. I think that him versus Swerve would be
Ooh, yeah, we never saw that.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, if Jesus, I'm trying to think of like another. I would love to see a Danielson Omega rematch. Um, the first one was just so good. I would love to see them go at it again. Um, I'm trying to think of. I would love to see him and John Moxley versus the Young Bucks. I think that that would be a really good match. Um, so there's a myriad of matches that I would like to see Danielson take, you know, be a part of before he says his goodbyes. But yeah, that's pretty much it. But I'm happy that, like, not happy that he's at the end, but I'm glad that he's like one of those guys that like knows when to call it when and says like, hey, I got to take care of my family. I got to do right by my family, and if that means I got to step back away from this, then I will. And I'm pretty sure that he's going to be employed still with AEW in some type of producer role or some type of role as like a, you know, like an agent or an advisor or a coach. But yeah, I'm just glad that he will be able to kind of like say that, you know, he ended on his terms, because a lot of wrestlers don't do that. But definitely want to know what y'all are feeling as it pertains to Daniel Bryan, Brian Danielson's retirement tour. Let us know who you think he should face in the comments below. But speaking of Daniel Bryan, speaking of Brian Danielson, one of his former students seems to be on her way to WWE. Jade Cargill returned during last week's edition of AEW Saturday Night Collision. She went on to face Chris Statlander for the TBS Championship on Rampage, where she lost. And the rumors have begun to circulate even before the match was even televised that Jade Cargill is leaving AEW for WWE. I don't think that this is a surprise. I don't. You know what? It is a surprise to me. However, I wanted to know how you feel regarding this news of Jade potentially going to WWE, and if you think that this is the move for her.
Okay, one, I'm not shocked. Two, I'm actually happy about it. Three, I'm I don't I'm not surprised that she wants to leave. And that she's wrapping it up or she's finishing, as they were putting it, with AEW, because she did enough. If you
Mm,
ask me, with the roster that they had, she did enough. She came in, she stole some ratings because she's strikingly good looking. Um, she was put in a Goldberg like position and
mm,
got this TBS belt. She put the belt over. She made the belt look important. She made the belt look good.
mm,
Um, I felt like she was a good representative. Had her out there uh, in the field at football, at baseball games and stuff like that. Had her on carpets for certain things. That was, I guess, she was just being a representative role for AEW. But she came in with her own resume, y'all. Like, she wasn't just like
yeah.
some randomly good looking woman that just wanted to become a wrestler. Like, she has an extensive resume. I think the woman got like 2 degrees. She modeled, she played basketball or whatnot. She just felt like wrestling. Like, she just felt like doing this. So she has like such an extensive resume. And she looks so good that I just feel like her coming into AEW was her doing them a favor. And I felt like one other thing I love that she did was how she brought the culture to AEW, where there was barely any culture. I'll forever love her for her bringing in her sorority and giving us that little tidbit. I love that so much, and I love the way that she carries herself. She knows that she's that girl, and it feels really good to watch a woman of color come in and just know her value, know her worth, and make people work on her time. Like, Tony Khan knows that it's like, if I don't abide by whatever the hell she wants, like, I'm losing it, because she could just go anywhere because she's that valuable, and she knows she's valuable. She knows she got it. So, but she has this look in this field that I feel like would match better the format of WWE. She's exactly what they would be looking for, and quite possibly, like I don't know what would happen with Bianca if she did come in. I know they definitely going to have a match with that, but it's a good and bad thing, actually. Now I think about it, the more I think about it, I'm like, if she goes over to WWE, yes, we're gonna definitely get that dream match between her and Bianca, because people look at Bianca and Jade as being like the next coming of China. Beth, they compare them to. Gaz, they compare them to. And we just talked about last show about how Bianca needs a break. It'd be nice to have someone like Jade around so she could get a break. Because everything that they want in Bianca, you can still get that with Jade. You
Yeah.
know, everything, not in a competition manner. Am I saying this? But in a manner of just like, all right, we have more stars, more bigger than life stars that could be good representatives that are new and still fresh. That it's like our next generation, our next wave of stars. So I could see that. And I feel like it would be a natural transition if she came to WWE. Like not for nothing when it came to the women in AEW, I felt like the only thing that made Jade's reign not as exciting as it could be is that they did lack storylines and personalities within like the women division, but they're
Yeah.
heavy on the entertainment factor with WWE. And there's a lot of different personalities to mix it up with. I could definitely see Carmella when she gives birth or whatnot, coming back and having like a little thing with Jade. I could see her mixing up with Bianca. I could see her getting in Charlotte's face. That's going to be a one hell of a match. And I could definitely see if for whatever reason if Bianca just wanted to take like a break off for a year, you could still do a whole lot with Jade and have her run through the division and set something up for WrestleMania and have Bianca come back for her belt. Like I
Right.
feel like there's so much you could do with her. And she's money. She's money. They would probably cut her the fattest check there just
Yeah.
because that division needs something. The division's not terrible, but the division needs something new and fresh to capture our eyes. And I think that if Jay came in as a heel, like a cocky ass heel, the way she came in the first time, this could work, and I'd be down for it. Um,
Hmm.
that's enough of my Jade gassing. I love my girl Jade. What do you think?
I think this is perfect. I think this is perfect timing. I think this is the best move for her. I think that she did the best, not the best she could, because that sounds condescending. I
No,
feel like she maximized her time in AEW because, mind you, she was learning on the fly and she was getting trained by Dustin and she was also getting trained by Brian Danielson. And to be
no
trained by those
PC.
two, no PC, and she learned all this on the fly. And I feel like if there was a point in time in which she wanted to go to the PC to just like refine herself and then go back out, I think that she would be just as fantastic, if not better. And so now that she's going to be in an environment where she's going to get, where she has that option of going to the PC, I think it's going to do wonders for her. Also, I feel like this is going to be of great relief to WWE because I feel like one of the things that fans have wanted to see for a long time is a Bianca heel turn. And now there is a flexibility in that happening in the sense of Bianca can turn heel, Jade can be face, or if they just wanted to keep Bianca face and have Jade heel, because I feel like a lot of the things that we want Bianca to do as a heel, Jade can also do. And now there's less pressure on her to be a heel. But there's so many ways you can go about this. You can have Bianca turn heel and Jade turn face. You can have Jade be a heel and Bianca be a face. You can have Jade and Bianca as a tag team. Then again, I don't want them titles to be cursed. So there's so many options that you can kind of have as it pertains to Jade and Bianca. And then on top of that, like obviously we know that Jade is a star. We know that even as the TBS champion, she made that championship feel like a world championship. And because of that, she elevated that championship. And I feel like regardless of which brand she goes on, she's going to be money. Her look is money, her mic skills are money. Like, and I just think that WWE is going to have a ball with Jade, and who knows where she's going to turn up first. Do you think she's going to be a main roster girl or an NXT girl first?
You know, okay, I feel like WWE would definitely want to put her on the main roster immediately just because she has her own resume.
Mm,
Like she has her own resume going to where she could afford to bypass the NXT system. However, and we're probably gonna get into this later in the show, but I feel like they've been trying to like look for a Mandy Rose replacement. And I feel like if
mm,
you want that Mandy Rose replacement, you got that in Jade because they're very similar as well. Strong, sexy, educated. They're both very good talkers. They're both very convincing in the ring. Jade has proved that she could lead a faction, same way that Mandy proved that she could lead a faction. And brand, they both basically led their own brands. So I feel like if you wanted to just I feel like you could go about it in two ways. You could put her in NXT and you could help get some ratings over there by throwing Jade in because both the WWE fans and AEW fans are aware of Jade. So if you really
Mm.
want to bring in some star power, but you want to make her earn it, you could put her in NXT. And like you just said, she could go through the ropes, she could learn, she could train, she got the PC right there. She could put over talent, come up organically, and face the bigger stars. But knowing how WWE likes to rush things, like if like this person's white hot, they want to keep the momentum going. I feel like they probably would just put her on the main roster. Even though I'm not against either or, I can see it, but it's the way you go about it because I don't want Jay to fizzle out and be
Yeah.
placed in the position that Bianca almost succumbed to, where it just feels like oh, they're handing her everything. Like I would hate that for her, even though I'm not gonna be mad at it because she is that girl. What do you think?
Makes sense. I think that Jade should definitely just go straight to the main roster just because of how white hot she is. Um, as it pertains to like a Mandy Rose replacement, I honestly think that Jade can eclipse that. And we'll talk about the whole Mandy Rose thing because I have a theory pertaining to that. But I do think that Jade can eclipse Mandy Rose. And I think she's already, in my opinion, with her work in AEW was so good that it kind of rivals that of what Mandy Rose did. Um, because Jade was a newer talent. But I
Yeah,
think that I think that Jade should definitely go straight to the main roster and kind of work her way up. She's money, and I think that she should be treated as such. I don't think that she needs to go do developmental, and if she does, it doesn't need to be for a long time. Uh, so yeah, I feel like Jade is gonna go back to NXT, kind of similar in the way that Becky is doing now, but I don't think that she should start there, if that makes sense. But
that's fair.
I think that Jade is gonna do very, very well, and I'm very, very excited for her eventual appearance in WWE and debut. So, but we want to know how you guys feel. Let us know in the comments how you feel about Jade moving over to WWE from AEW. But we're going to move on. So it seems like Jade is not the only one in AEW that's looking for a drastic change because Santana formally announces the proud and powerful breakup. He referred to, he had a promo airing on Collision, and he referred to Ortiz as a crutch, in which Ortiz responded in a reply tweet. Do you think Santana's going to succeed as a single star, and do you think that they should have broken up Proud and Powerful?
I'm gonna answer this backwards. I don't think they should have broken up. I feel like the least you could have done is put them together as a tag team, have them challenge for the belts, win the belts, and you could have still I can't speak today. God damn it! You could have still told the same story
Right.
about him being a crutch and making it seem a little more natural than to disappear. Because not for nothing, when it came to AEW, they did promote themselves as being high on tag teams and stuff like that. And the first early on tag teams we were introduced to were, yes, the Young Bucks. We had Private Party. We had Proud and Powerful. Um, and it's so weird because like the House of Glory tag teams, I thought for some reason were going to get the belts first or feel more important,
Yes.
and they all became like sideshow acts, which is just it's so weird and it's like a brain scratcher for me. I'm just like, huh? Like I remember when who passed away in Hog? Somebody passed away in Hog that was very important to them, near and dear to them. I forgot their name. Excuse me for that.
Matt
But they
Taven.
had, yes, there you go. And they had the two of them boys, both Private Party and Prom Powerful, had the honor of wrestling on their behalf and whatnot. And I thought to myself, like, wow, like these one of these two tag teams are going to take that belt, hold the belt, and it's going to carry some weight to that bitch. You know what I mean? The crowd loved them, and I just felt like every time they did something with these tag teams, it was like, oh, okay, like they're on the rise. Like I just gotta be patient. I gotta be patient. I gotta be patient. But they're gonna get the belts first, and when I get the belt, it's gonna be as heartwarming. as it probably was when we got to watch the Acclaim finally get and stuff like that. And nothing happened. Nothing
Right.
happened, and to me, it almost feels like robbery. It feels like robbery before my eyes, just because like it feels like they were being used in a way. Like they were a
Mm.
stepping stone for other tag teams that they actually wanted because whatever was hot at the time. So I, in one sense, do not blame Santana for wanting to break up the tag team, but it's like you're going into this role ass naked with no momentum because y'all didn't get to do shit. Y'all didn't get to do shit as a tag team. Y'all ain't got no belts. I'm cracking Jordan up. Like you going
I'm
into this
I'm only
raw.
weak. I'm gonna let you finish, but the only reason why I'm weak is because I literally just imagine just like him walking in to a room just butt naked, just like, hey
But
guys, all right, I'm ready. No, but
that's
keep
how
going.
that promo was. He stepped onto the camera with his dick out, put his arms out, and said, "I'm gonna run singles." Like that's literally what happened. That's like
Dick out is crazy. But
just
keep going.
like this came out raw and everything. Pause, but it's just like like
Pause.
heavy.
Keep going though. Keep going.
Nah, it's just he just came out of the blue. He didn't give us any momentum going into it, and it just kind of came off more bitter than anything in the promo. And I understand what he was trying to come at with the promo. Like I see the
Right.
vision he was trying to come with this shit, and he was trying to just be like, all right, like I'm coming back, but I'm shifting gears and I'm giving you guys something new. It kind of comes off bitter to a fan watching because we like you guys together, but out of the two, I'm gonna keep it a buck, our eyes and our attention was on Ortiz because out of the two of us, since we didn't get anything out of you guys as a tag team, we had to pay attention
Mm,
to like the little times you guys made us laugh with your with your character work. We kind of like lean a little bit towards Ortiz just because like we
mm,
felt like there was something we were able to connect to or get something out of. Whereas with Santana's character, he's painfully blah.
mm,
Painfully blah. He's the more serious one out of the two, but you paid attention to him when they were co-oping. So when I
mm.
was listening to this promo, I didn't hate the promo, but I'm just like, you're not gonna get the reception you want because it's just coming off like, oh, it didn't work when we were being a tag team, so I'm gonna try and do this on my own. Fuck my partner. Now I don't know what he's gonna
Mm.
do, but fuck him. So I get it, but I don't agree with it. There was a lot more I feel like they could have accomplished. He could have still done single stuff if he wanted to, and be a tag team. We see it work before, but he didn't want to do that. I feel bad
Mm,
for Ortiz because I don't know what he's going to do. Because I also don't see Ortiz being a singles guy.
mm.
He's someone where he has a ball of energy, but he needs something to bounce off of. I think Santana needs something to bounce off too, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing
Right.
wrong with that. It doesn't it, but if he feels like it's gonna work for his career, by all means, I guess do it. I'm not gonna say it's not gonna work, but I'm saying you're not going in there with very much momentum at all, so you're gonna have to shock the hell out of us. And I don't even
Mm,
know who I would mix Santana up with first. I don't even understand what kind of character he's coming with in with this.
mm.
So I'm hoping he blows me away, but I would much rather prefer to have seen them come back, come together, and work with that and put some respect on New York. But if he
Mm.
wants to do it this way, whatever, like it is what it is. But I'm not so much supporting it, but I'm not hating it necessarily. What do you think?
Right. So, as it pertains to Santana, it's so crazy that you touched on like the passing of Matt Travis because I remember when he passed away. Matt was a good friend of mine, and I remember when he passed away,
I'm so
and I
sorry.
remember that kind of serving as fuel to kind of Proud and Powerful as well as Private Party because these were two teams that were very very well acclimated and on a personal level with Matt, and so I don't know what happened on a personal standpoint, but it had to have been very, very significant for Proud and Powerful to split. It's not my business. But I, I'm neutral. I don't think that Santana isn't going to be successful, but I also don't know how he is. I don't know how he's going to separate himself from the pack. I don't know what he's going to do to make himself distinct and make himself memorable. And to be honest, I feel like Proud and Powerful should have stayed together because I feel like they were a great tag team. They worked in Impact Wrestling. I feel like had they had a nice 3 month build to a world tag team title match that led to them winning, I feel like that could have been a great story. And I feel like it should have been a great story. And I feel like they should have just kind of kept going. But once again, the reason for their split is not my business, and I'm a mind mine. But I just feel as if they could have been something ridiculously special because they were right in Impact. They were a great tag team. House of Glory, they were a great tag team. Even at the beginning of AEW, they were a great tag team. So we'll see what comes of them. We'll see what comes of Santana's singles career. I wish him nothing but the best. Obviously, I want to see Ortiz do well as well. And it'll be interesting to kind of see where he falls when the chips fall. And I feel like Santana and Ortiz, if they are going to pursue this single stars thing, that should be the first feud. Um,
You have to.
but you have to. After that tweet exchange, it has to be the first feud. But we want to see. I want to know what everybody else feels about this. Do you think that Santana is going to be a successful single star? Let us know in the comments below. So I think this is going into the Fox situation. So speaking of rocky relationships, it looks as if Fox and SmackDown are at the end of the road. Fox has officially nixed the Out of Character podcast with Ryan Satin. This is now the second WWE related thing that they've kind of nixed from their catalog. The first being WWE Backstage, which infamously had 4 or 5 people who are now in AEW between Renee Paquette, Saraya, Samoa Joe, Adam Cole, and also CM Punk, who is no longer with the company, but also Booker T.
That's crazy. I didn't
Um,
think about that.
all of them went all elite, and it's kind of nuts. But they've kind of nixed the podcast, and this is the second now Fox related WWE product that's been cut from their catalog. So my question to you is: do you think that this is the end of Fox and WWE? Do you think this is the end of WWE working with Fox on anything after this SmackDown deal expires?
Most likely. And I guess I kind of don't blame them because they probably fell through with enough deals. They're probably not
Yeah,
giving Fox exactly what they want or what they expected to see. But do I think it's going to hurt WWE entirely? No, not really. I feel like they're more equipped with themselves to go move on to another network. But
yeah,
it's this. I feel like there's another time in between all of this that this stuff happened where it's like I feel like there's been a conflict with Fox versus the audience because they showcase certain people that Fox demands, but then Fox doesn't like. I don't think Fox really be in the meeting rooms or watching the actual show to know what the audience wants and what they want to see sometimes. And I feel like sometimes
right.
that hinders WWE. So I feel like there's been multiple occasions where like they haven't been on the same page with things, and
Mm,
it's reflecting because they're not getting what they want.
yeah.
They're not seeing the results they want. So and I could see it coming to an end. But I mean, it ran its course. They dealt with Fox since like what 2019 or something.
2018, 2019, I believe.
All right, that's a good enough 5 year run. I feel like
Right.
it's enough. It's enough. What do you think?
I think it's enough. And I also think that the writing was on the wall, right? Even at the beginning of the relationship when WWE kind of first acquired SmackDown, I mean not WWE acquired SmackDown, when Fox kind of put $1 billion on the table for SmackDown, and you heard reports of who they did and didn't want on the show, and what they weren't, pleased with. And when you're very, very particular about a product, something that has naturally been successful, it's usually a sign that you don't really want it there, or you only want it there under certain conditions. So I think that the
Hmm.
writing was on the wall from the jump because Fox was very, very particular. Like, we want SmackDown, but we want the SmackDown with this, 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 and this. And it's like, oh, so you want the version of SmackDown that you want. You don't necessarily want SmackDown. And so I think that once Backstage kind of pulled in low ratings, and rightfully so because it was on late at night, um, they kind of like started their process of un WWEing Fox. But I'm not surprised, and I think that it is time, and I think that WWE has the leverage to go to another network or another company. I would love to see them do Amazon Prime, or I would love to
Hmm.
see them do like a Hulu type of situation. That would be really really cool. But we'll see what happens. But I think it was time for WWE and Fox to kind of end this saga of the relationship.
Hmm.
So we want to know how you guys feel about it. How do you guys feel about Fox and WWE and their relationship coming to an end? Let us know in the comments below. But speaking of things that have been controversial and polarizing, this past week on NXT television, Becky Lynch came and became the NXT Women's Championship. She defeat Women's Championship. She became the NXT Women's Champion by defeating Tiffany Stratton. This was something that was very polarizing, especially amongst Mo and I. I wanted Mo to kind of take to say her piece, and I'm gonna say mine. But I want Mo's reaction to Becky Lynch going to to NXT to win the women's championship and beating Tiffany Stratton. So go ahead.
First off, I feel like Jordan's about to piss me off after anything I say. And I'm like, now I'm pretty pissed off. Um, that's number one. Number two. All right. Let me start with this. Let me start with this. Rebecca, Miss Becky Flair, whatever you want to call yourself, the fraud. Um, I dislike this decision very much. I dislike this decision very much because I feel like we have such a talented. I would drop my headphone. My headphone don't want to hear me talk shit about Miss Rebecca. Are you a Becky Lynch fan too? Give me a moment. My headphone is a Becky Lynch fan because that bitch escaped my fucking ears as soon as I started mentioning Miss Rebecca. All right. So here's my issue with all this. We have such a talented roster. A bunch of women who are fighting for this screen time. And I honestly feel like they've been doing a very good job over there in NXT. I feel like if I was an employee at WWE and I was in NXT and I've been busting my ass off for just to get at least 5 minutes of 2 hour TV shows, I would like be pissed to see that some person who's already spammed on Monday nights coming down and then taking my opportunity and the title ball I've been working my ass for. Okay, I understand that Tiffany probably wasn't like as good of a champion as we wanted her to be, but you still could have gave it to somebody else, anybody else that's been trying. And they tried this shit with Charlotte. They tried this shit with Charlotte, and we all hated it. We all hated it, and it didn't move the needle at all. At all. The bitch sat there and ran through the whole entire division, and she did it selfishly. And it was all just because WWE just wanted to solidify Charlotte as a Grand Slam champion. And I feel like they're just doing that with Becky. I feel like they're giving Becky the Charlotte 2.0 treatment to
Mm.
where I'm just like, girl, didn't you come in with the man persona and you was chewing out Charlotte in front of us, exposing her for, getting anything she wants because of her privilege? And how you're not going to be that. You're going to be the champion that the fans want. I feel like she's a hypocrite. I feel like she's a hypocrite. Because you could just continue doing what the fuck you was doing over there on Monday Night Raw and not bothering a soul. I don't think she's gonna come in there and move the needle or the ratings over there. Because not for nothing, I like Becky Lynch as a person. I do. But she's not that interesting to watch wrestle at all times. There's only so many people I like to watch her mix it up with. I don't see her going down there and putting on 5-star classics to where I'm going to be like, damn, I got to watch Tuesday night to go see that Becky Lynch match. No one has ever done that. I'm sorry. And I think the last time we done that was, I mean, maybe if you're a Trish fan, you wanted to see this shit or whatnot. But like Becky doesn't, she's not the needle mover that she once was. I feel like she peaked. I'm not saying that she's like fallen down completely, but she peaked. And
Mm.
I feel like if there's any other time you probably want to pull this shit off, this probably around the man era. But right now, she's just kind of coasting. You're not doing NXT any more favors by bringing her there beyond taking away opportunities from other deserving women. So I'm pissed off just because I'm just like, girl, like, you're no better than Charlotte doing this. If she gets the belt, she needs to lose the bitch next week in order to like not piss me off. Like, all right, you're a Grand Slam. Scoot, skirt, get out the way now. But you're not doing shit for this company. You're not. I'm sorry, not this for this company, for this third party brand. Go play over there on Monday night. All right. No, I wasn't watching your segments anyways on Monday night, but go back to Monday night to go find someone else to play with. Leave the NXT girlies alone and stop being a hypocrite. That's all I have to say on Miss Fraud, Miss Lynch, Rebecca. Okay. That's all I have to say for now. I'm gonna let Jordan speak because I feel myself already being pre pissed off. And I'm going to prepare myself to curse him out. So go on, Jordan. What rebuttal do you have to say for me?
I have never been so excited to cook in my life. So let me start off by saying this. I like Becky.
Mm-hmm.
Mercedes is still my favorite of the four horsewomen. Um, but I wanted to address the points you made on Twitter because I have notes, girl. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
feel like you have to make it we have to make a very, very clear distinction of certain things. I feel like there is a difference between a fact and there's a difference between a feeling, right? Or a
Okay.
difference between a fact and a difference between an opinion. So one of
Okay.
the things, so I'm going to start with the opinion, right? Because that's subjective, right? I remember one of the first things you said was, Becky Lynch peaked and she's now spiraling, and it's very, very similar to an Alexa Bliss situation, right?
Oh,
Where
yeah. I
she
still
had
believe
her
that.
moment, huh?
I still believe that, actually.
And she had her moment in 2019 at WrestleMania 35, and now she's kind of in the midst of her decline, right? So I think there's a couple things that are at play here. Number one, I feel like this is not a matter of Becky declining as much as it is the novelty of the newness of the man wearing off. I feel like there was a point in time where, because the man was such a fresh perspective in the women's division, that people were so excited about it, because now here was a woman who had a very stone cold esque cadence to her, in the sense of, I'm gonna talk I'm gonna talk my talk, I'm gonna stand on business, and I'm gonna go through all of y'all. I feel like that was fresh. Here's what I will say though, when it comes to the whole like, Becky is Alexa, I disagree. And the reason why I disagree is for a very simple reason. Becky's peak and Alexa's peak are night and day, right? Becky's peak was being a top 3 merch seller. Becky's peak was being the face of a company in the midst of media rights negotiations when SmackDown was in the process of being sold to Fox. Becky's peak was being a WrestleMania main eventer, which means that because her peak is different from Alexa's peak, her spiraling down is different from Alexa spiraling down. Becky still has the credibility because she was the undisputed face of the company in a way that wasn't forced down our throats. The man was not supposed to happen. Originally, it was not supposed to happen. They wanted Charlotte and Ronda to be our WrestleMania main event, and Becky forced her way in because she was that over and she was that popular. So I feel like we
But
can't
why was she
sit up here and say,
popular? But why was she
huh?
popular? But why was she popular?
She was popular because of the main character, and she was popular because of her ascent into that main event
But what did the
spot.
man
And
character mean to
hold
us?
on, hold on. Her character was anti Charlotte. Her character was the anti Charlotte, and I'm so glad that you brought that up, because that was the next thing that I was going to address. So part of the reason why we say that Charlotte is Charlotte isn't necessarily just because of Charlotte the person or Charlotte the character. It's Charlotte the privilege. It's the fact that Charlotte has been able to be integrated into everything that she's wanted to be integrated into. But what was your main critique of Charlotte? Charlotte can't be around unless she's in a championship match.
Yeah, but
Right.
I also think she's in my
So
face in
going off of,
general.
huh?
And she has,
She can't.
and
She
I have a lot of reasons why I hate Charlotte. But what? But yes, my biggest complaint is yes, the fact she can't exist without a title role. But I also felt like she was on my screen at all times, and that she wasn't creating actual storylines. That was another thing that was pissing me off. Go ahead.
so and if I'm not mistaken, you also complained about Charlotte not putting people over, correct?
Yeah, I did.
All right.
I most
So
definitely
let's
did.
let's tackle those 2 points, right?
Okay.
Becky's last championship opportunity prior to her NXT championship match was the tag team championship situation that she got out of after WrestleMania when it was her and Trish, or her and Lita, or whatever the case may be, right? She ended up dropping the titles to Liv and Raquel. Liv went on to be one of the only people to pin Ronda multiple times. Raquel is in a main event program with Rhea, right? On top of that, she got into the story with Trish and Zoe Stark. She lost to Trish, she lost to Zoe, and she lost to Zoe on an episode of Raw. She didn't lose on like a pay per view. So she lost to both of them. And then in the process of that story, in the Money in the Bank ladder match, she involved herself in a spot with Bailey to put over Io Sky. So now, from Mania alone, that's Liv, who pinned Raquel multiple times and would have been in a higher position had she not gotten injured. She put over Raquel because she's currently in a world title program, technically put over Trish because she lost to Trish in Saudi Arabia, put over Zoe on an episode of Raw, who is now with Shayna Baszler and is about to get into a program for the tag team titles. And then on top of that, put over Io, who is now the WWE Women's Champion on SmackDown. So now that's technically 5 people that she put over. What they were able to do with their momentum is different, because we can argue about how the momentum is different, but it really all depends on the individual and the circumstances that they've surrounded themselves with,
But I
right?
never said she
So then
wasn't
that,
pulling people over. Like that was never my complaint about Miss Becky. I think she's
but
taking away
right,
screen time because she wants to be
right.
a Grand Slam.
But here's the thing. I'm gonna get to that. Ooh, I'm gonna get to that. I'm so glad you're bringing all this up. But that was the whole argument about Charlotte, right? Was Charlotte doesn't put people over, right? Charlotte doesn't put people over, and the only time that Charlotte is around is Charlotte's opportunities as far as championship matches. So here we have a girl in Becky who is she my favorite? No.
No.
But this is someone who over the past 5 months, outside of this NXT championship match, has put herself in places where she's putting people over and there is no championship involved. So then there's that. Then prior to this, prior to the NXT championship match, all of these things weren't for a title. So now, how can Becky be Charlotte if the idea is, well, how can Becky be Charlotte if the idea is that Charlotte always needs a championship run in order to be in front of our screen and Charlotte doesn't put people over? And then on top of that, how can we say that Charlotte or Becky is becoming Charlotte when there have been literal times where Becky and Charlotte have had the same exact predicament and Charlotte had a much different outcome than Becky? Perfect example. Charlotte faced Trish Stratus SummerSlam, right? Becky had to face Trish at a premium live event, but it wasn't on the show. It got taken off the show. So literally in this particular case, here we have Charlotte and Becky literally in a very, very similar predicament. And the privilege that comes with Charlotte came up with Charlotte, but it didn't come up with Becky. And while I think that Becky and Trish was a better story than Charlotte and Trish, it's like Charlotte and Trish were still on the show, whereas Becky and Trish were not, and they had to main event a random Raw, which a lot of people are saying is a potential match of the year candidate. But I'm not going to get into that because that's subjective. So here we have a clear instance in which Becky's putting people over in a case that Charlotte wouldn't have, where Becky was literally in a similar predicament as Charlotte as far as feuding with the same person, but Becky's match being kicked off of a premium live event, whereas Charlotte's stayed on the premium live event, and Becky being in a situation over the past 5 months that had nothing to do with a championship whatsoever. So we can't call Becky Charlotte if Becky is doing things that Charlotte isn't doing or wouldn't want to do. So there's that aspect, right? But then what was the other thing that you said about Jesus, about the NXT women, right? You have so much talent on the roster, but you're taking screen time away from somebody else, right? So let's go down the roster. We have Amari Miller, Ariana Grace, Blair Davenport, Cora Jade, Electra Lopez, Fallon Henley, Gigi Dolan, JC Jane, Jakara Jackson, Kelani Jordan, Kiana James, Lash Legend, Lola Vice, Lyra Valkyr. I'm not going to pronounce that name. Miko Satomura, Nikita Lyons, Roxanne Perez, Sol Ruka, Tatum Plaxley, Tiffany Stratton, Valentina Feroz, Wendy Chu, and Ulissa Leon. Out of all the names that I have just mentioned, who out of that batch could have believably been the next NXT Women's Champion? I see a couple. I see Sol Ruka, who is now injured. I see Nikita Lyons, who is injured. We see Miko Satomura. We don't know what her status is. We see Lyra, who's still in the feud to kind of build herself up. We see Gigi, Cora, maybe Blair, right? But what has been the problem since Mandy has left NXT? Credibility. The problem isn't the fact that NXT doesn't have the talent. The problem is the fact that they don't have the credibility, right? You can sit up here and we can say talent wise, oh, they have this person, this person, this person. But if you're looking at the face of the division and you're still saying, something's missing, and that has nothing to do with talent or athleticism or ability, it's because there needs to be some form of credibility that's attached to the division. And they tried it in multiple ways. We've seen Rhea down there with Dominic. Rhea gets in the ring with Lyra, right? And even though that was a good match, it's not ascribing credibility in the way that they predicted to ascribe or to, I should say, attach credibility onto the roster or onto the superstars, right? Anytime, at least in the past couple of years, that a main roster person has gone down to NXT, it's always been, with the exception of Mandy Rose, it's always been to eventually put over somebody else. The New Day won the NXT tag team titles. They ended up dropping them to Gallus. That ended up going to Tony D'Angelo and Stax. Braun Breaker had a feud with Dolph Ziggler. And right when, after, as soon as they had that match, right, as soon as they had that story, right, Dolph won at TakeOver. What ended up happening? Braun Breaker went on Raw and got the NXT title the night after WrestleMania, which is arguably the biggest platform that he's ever been on. By the fact that Becky Lynch is down here in NXT, one way or another, because she has a program with Tiffany Stratton, not only is it going to give Tiffany the exposure, it's also going to give her main roster experience, and it's also going to attach credibility to the championship that wasn't there before, because it went when Mandy got fired. And it's like, okay, well, what's next? What's going to happen with Becky? Why is Becky the champion? Easy. No Mercy is on September 30th. That's in 2 weeks. It's in 2 weeks' time. And so in 2 weeks' time, there is a very big likelihood that Becky Lynch and Tiffany Stratton are going to go for the NXT championship, the NXT Women's Championship, arguably going to be a higher rated, higher drawing pay-per-view than normal because Becky is there, which is the reason why you would want to put a four horsewoman on any developmental product, is to expand the exposure. But in turn, guess where Becky's going to be on Monday? Raw, which means that Tiffany Stratton is going to be on Raw, which means that she's going to continue to get her reps in on a main roster show. So then there's that. Yes, I think that Becky wanted to be a Grand Slam champion, and I think that that's a big part of the reason why she won. But I also feel like this is going to give the credibility that it's needed. Give the championship the credibility that is needed, and I feel like it's also going to give Tiffany Stratton the credibility that she's needed as a champion. Because when all is said and done, Tiffany Stratton is going to be the only person on that NXT Women's roster that has a victory over a former four horsewoman. The only one. And so then going from that, right? You said that Mandy Rose, you said Mandy Rose is the biggest main roster draw on NXT.
As far as the woman goes that went down there, I feel like she's the only one that like people actually cared when she went down there. Like that it
So
actually
let's
kind of adjust.
So you said she was the only one that people cared about when she actually adjusted, right?
Yeah, because like things actually changed. Things actually shifted over there for a bit. And I feel like they're scrambling. And all I'm hearing, I mean, I'm not saying like you're completely wrong with what your points are, but I just feel like, oh, we're gonna bring Becky to help out NXT. Like, why? It's kind of implying that the roster in itself isn't enough right now. And I feel like they were doing just fine. Like, I don't think you
Well,
need Becky to accomplish all this stuff.
but here's the thing though, when you put the current world women's champion on NXT temporarily, having matches, having segments with current superstars and people still aren't paying attention, where else are you going to go to? But that's a rhetorical question. But we're gonna go into this idea that Mandy Rose was the biggest main roster draw on NXT as it pertains to the women.
Yeah,
Because
she was.
I feel like Mandy Rose had a more intriguing story, but I don't think that she was a bigger draw. And we can
And
point
also
at
Sasha and Bailey, that one time they showed up. I gotta give them credit too.
yes, I feel like Sasha and Bailey could were probably bigger draws. But let's look at the stats. On September 14th, 2021 is when Mandy Rose debuted on NXT. That show pulled in 770,000 viewers. On October 26th, 2021 was when Mandy Rose won the NXT Women's Championship against Raquel Rodriguez. This was at Halloween Havoc. That show drew 746,000 viewers. This past week, when Becky won the NXT Women's Championship, the show drew at the beginning of the match 961,000 viewers at the start of the match. By the end of the match, it accumulated over 1 million viewers. Now, for context, Mandy Rose was competing against Monday Night Football, or like football, during her September debut, as well as Halloween Havoc, where she won the NXT Championship, the NXT Women's Championship. When Becky was on NXT, she was competing against football and she was competing against the VMAs. She was competing against more than Mandy and was able to draw a bigger result than Mandy.
Was
But
Mandy on
I
Tuesday nights in the beginning? Like I can't remember what year they started shifting NXT from
Tuesday.
Wednesday to Tuesday. It was still a Tuesday.
It was
That
still
was a
Tuesday,
Tuesday?
I believe, if
Okay.
I'm not mistaken. But I feel like, but here's the thing though, and this is the reason why I have a strong objection to the whole like, oh, well, Mandy is this and Becky is that. Because the story of Mandy Rose and Becky Lynch are completely different, right? The reason why we look at Mandy Rose the way that we look at Mandy Rose is because Mandy Rose went to NXT, reinvented herself, led a faction, and then became better week by week by week by week by week, right? She had a more compelling story because she had a more compelling development and she flipped a switch. She went to NXT to build herself into the main eventer that we believe that she still think that, that we think that she still is. I still think that she's a main eventer. I still think that she can go on Raw and go on SmackDown. Hell, she could do a WrestleMania. I think that she has it now. But the reality is that she had to build herself into that. But with Becky Lynch showed up as the draw. Becky Lynch showed up as the draw. She showed up as the WrestleMania main eventer. She showed up as the woman who's held pretty much every belt in WWE, has done everything in WWE. And there's a difference between you going down somewhere and building yourself into the main event versus showing up as the main event. Understand? Now, I think that more people started to care about Mandy Rose because when she went down before NXT, let's look at what she was up against. She was attached to Otis at one point. Otis got the Money in the Bank briefcase taken off of her, taken off of him. So then that storyline got scrapped. Then we saw this whole Mandy, Jimmy Uso, Naomi love triangle situation. That didn't fare out well. Then we saw Mandy and Sonya as a tag team. And while they were a good tag team, they were still positioned to be number two behind Sasha and Bailey. The reality is that before Mandy went down to NXT, she was talented and she had a little bit of what we saw in NXT, but whatever she was involved in didn't work. And so she had to go to NXT to rebuild herself in order to become the superstar that we know her to be. Whereas Becky Lynch showed up as the superstar. And that's the reason why I said that, like, Becky is obviously a bigger draw than Mandy Rose, but it's not Mandy Rose's fault. Becky has been like a face of the division for the better part of 5 years at this point. And obviously it's going to be a little bit different of her going down to NXT to do all of this than if a Mandy Rose was, still in NXT doing what she was doing.
I
But
feel like you can
that
still
was just
it's a little bit incomparable only because like NXT had some really shitty points. Like this new version of NXT was so shitty that it took time for it to actually pick up. And Becky's entering in while this new NXT product is in a better position. Just
I agree.
overall, like they found their own stride. So I wouldn't even bother comparing those ratings. I still think that what she got with the 700s is very much impressive because that was around a time where no one believed in this shit and we said NXT was dead. So the fact that she pulled that amount of ratings and then she kept it up consistently, along with people believing in her, I just think that's just is different. And I'm not, and when I say that Becky Lynch is acting like Charlotte or whatnot, it's not really in a position of putting people over. That was never my critique about Becky. My critique about Becky is just the common, it still stands on the idea that I don't think it's necessary to put her down there because they're doing fine. Like, I feel like they're doing fine over there. Is it in the long run helping to put someone over? But maybe, I guess, but I also don't think it's needed. I feel like it almost pisses me off as much as when they had Becky come back and take the belt off of Bianca just so we could tell this long term story to put Bianca over more. When it's just like, well, you could have just also left the belt on Bianca because really no one was complaining about what we were looking at. I feel like they're kind of semi doing it now with Tiffany to put Tiffany over, but I feel like people are already believing in Tiffany. I think she still needs like some work with her ring work and stuff like that. Maybe she could get a little bit better with like the mic work, but like people are already believing in her. Otherwise, they wouldn't have given her the belt.
But
Um,
maybe, my bad. I didn't mean to interrupt. But
no, go ahead.
maybe that's the reason why she's in a feud with Becky. Like, I don't think that you're gonna get put in a storyline with the face of the women's division over the past 5 years if someone already didn't believe in you. And maybe this isn't a matter of people not believing in Tiffany. Maybe this is a matter of people believing in Tiffany and are trying to find a way to gradually introduce her to a wider audience. And by you being in a story involved with Becky Lynch, that means you're going to be seen, as stated earlier, you're going to be seen on a main roster show. You're going to have packages that weren't previously aired for Raw and SmackDown, now aired on your behalf on these shows because you're in a storyline with Becky. And now that exposure is going to put you at a different level because of who you're feuding with. So I
I have
think
to
that,
genuinely ask: do you like these Becky Lynch feuds and these matches?
do I like them?
Like all
They're
the ones
cool.
that like this between her whole program of putting all these people over, do you really feel like it's stuff that people look back on for any of these people that she's
So
been putting over? That like my point
I
is Becky Lynch even effective?
I do. I do think that she's effective, but I think that there's a difference between effective and what's my preference, right?
Okay.
Once again, I said Mercedes is my favorite horsewoman, right? And I think that Becky, but just because Becky isn't my favorite horsewoman doesn't mean that I don't see the value in what she's doing. And so I look at her story with Bianca. In hindsight, that was probably Bianca's second best story. Her first being with Sasha. Yeah.
I like the
Yeah.
Sasha one, the
And
Becky one. I didn't hate it, but I just want to see Bianca win because I was pissed off.
And that concludes our show for today. Just a quick heads up, y'all. Mo is going to be taking a little bit of a leave for a month. She's going to be back with us, hopefully at the end of October. But she's going to take care of some things as she should. But I'll be here. We'll still be providing some great shows for you guys. I'm gonna miss you too, sis. And but yeah, we'll still be here putting out some shows. But that concludes our show for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week.